Now, let's get started. I will pass the mic over to our moderator, Jonathan Cantor, Strategy Market Leader and Senior Vice President at RS&H. Take it away, Jonathan.
Thanks, Dana. I really appreciate it, and welcome everybody, and looking forward to a great panel discussion and conversation. As Dana said, my name is Jonathan Cantor. I'm a Senior Vice President and Strategic Market Leader at RS&H. I've been with the company for about 18 years, and I started the healthcare group for the company about 10 years ago, at which point we started working with AdventHealth shortly thereafter, and it's really just been a wonderful partnership ever since then. So really looking forward to being able to continue this. With us today also is Heather Gasher. Heather is the Director of Women's Services, which covers multiple campuses within the AdventHealth system. She's a certified nurse executive with a master's in business administration and over 17 years of leadership across the region. Through her career, she has had significant clinical nursing experience spanning various adult, newborn, obstetrical areas, which do include labor and delivery, obstetrical triage, mother-baby, newborn nursery, and neonatal intensive care. So welcome, Heather. Thank you for joining us today. Also with us is Steven Zutenbach. Steven is a Senior Project Manager in the Office of Design and Construction at AdventHealth and oversees all capital construction projects at the Altamonte Springs campus. With over 10 years of experience as a licensed architect specializing in healthcare, Steven's got a deep knowledge of not just the building and regulatory codes, but also the ethos and operational flows that govern healthcare settings and facilities like this. So welcome, Steven. Thank you for joining us. And also with us is Jessica Whitlock. Jessica is the healthcare studio leader at RS&H in Orlando, with over 11 years of experience in healthcare interior design, architecture, and project management. She's a strong design professional with a focus on developing highly collaborative project teams and environments. And she's AHID certified and involved in the Women in Healthcare organization, as well as the AMFP in Orlando. Her experience has covered a spectrum of care with women's specialty care, oncology, acute care environments, and many, many more. And welcome to Jessica. With that being said, I'll quickly just kind of go through the agenda for today. And basically, there's going to be a number of takeaways that we're hoping everybody will be able to, at the end of the conversation, go, okay, that was really good. Project overview, which Steven and Jessica are going to walk us through. And then we'll get into the panel discussion, and then we'll finally, at the end, leave time for a little bit of Q&A. So the key takeaways here are going to be really, what were the key factors and cost benefits to consider in renovation versus new construction? What's the impact of room design on patient, family, and the staff experience? And the importance of stakeholder involvement in design. And then finally, part of the architect team selection considerations and what really needs to go into that. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Jessica, and you can walk us through this and with you and Steven. So Jessica.
Thank you, Jonathan. Like Jonathan mentioned, my name is Jessica Whitlock, and I was a project manager on this project for the AdventHealth Mother-Infant Unit. About a year and a half ago, AdventHealth approached our design team about a conversation around the renovation of their existing mother-infant unit that is currently on the 4th floor of their original patient tower on the Altamonte campus that dates back to the 1970s. So we knew walking to this project, this was going to be, our first challenge. So we started off with a feasibility to be able to see, what our challenges are, how feasible was this to be able to convert an existing mother-infant unit and bring it into today's modern expectation of healthcare design. And so the existing patient floor is a little over 18,000 square feet with about 26 different patient rooms. And the biggest goal with this was to be able to take some of those existing small patient rooms and convert them to larger state-of-the-art rooms that are very competitive in today's market with some of the other mother-baby units that are newer, more ground-up facilities. We knew the level of care here was already top-notch. So how do we take the actual design and the patient experience of this unit and match it and mirror it to today's, medical services already being provided there at the facility. So currently, The mother-infant unit is actually adjacent on the same floor of the baby place to the LDR. So this particular unit is the postpartum unit directly adjacent from the LDR. So we're gonna, through floor plans and graphics, we're gonna kind of walk you through the project and kind of be able to talk about some of our different challenges and solutions that we were able to bring forward for this particular endeavor. So our first slide represents, before we get to our first slide for the floor plan, we just want to take a moment and thank all of our amazing partners on this project. We have Ramsky & Company representing interiors. We have TLC representing engineering, Maya Consulting representing equipment planning, and then of course, Brasfield & Gorey representing our construction team. It truly takes a village to be able to get these projects done. So thank you so much to our amazing partners. So on our first slide, this floor plan gives a pretty good high-level overview of our existing floor plan as it exists today. So in purple, you'll see all of our small patient rooms, which you can see are more of that shotgun style patient room with the bed up against the wall, very tight, very small spaces for both mom, baby, and family. Orange and yellow represents the clinical spaces and corridors and circulation. And then the green up in the top right-hand side of the plan represents our ORs, which will be a bigger conversation we're going to get to when we talk about the phasing of this project. That one was definitely the most important and another challenge that we were faced when it came to the construction of this unit. On our next slide, we're going to be able to show you what our design looks like today. So up in the north, you will see in purple, we took basically 10 existing patient rooms and converted them to 5 larger patient rooms. So this was our second challenge. So our first challenge was the age of the building. Our second challenge was, you know, our largest goal was to be able to bring in larger rooms into this facility. And to be able to do that, we had to reduce our bed count. And that was a big decision because these are revenue generating rooms. And that was a big decision from AdventHealth to be able to put that forward to be able to provide a higher level patient experience here at Altamonte. So we basically took 10 different small patient rooms, converted them to 5 larger patient rooms. And you'll see 4 of those up at the north side of your plan in the purple. And then you'll see 1 down in the south. So that was our 5 there. So we lost a total of 5 patient rooms to be able to provide these larger state-of-the-art rooms. So now we're down to 21 patient rooms from 26 patient rooms. Everything highlighted in yellow is the areas that we are renovating as well from a finish standpoint through corridors, nurse stations, and circulation. We want to make sure that even though we're renovating these new state-of-the-art larger rooms, that the rest of the floor plan came with it, and that everything was cohesively designed together as one unit. On our next plan, this plan is showing our next challenge, which is a big conversation that we had with AdventHealth and the construction team. And before we get into that, I want to take a moment and really talk about the importance of bringing on your construction teams early, because this is where this really helped us a lot. And so Brasfield & Gorey was a part of our design team from the beginning, from the beginning of design conversations and how we're going to make this happen and implement certain strategies and solutions. And so it was very imperative that they were with us the entire time. And it really helped us move along through our design schedule a lot more efficiently. And so we were able to talk about the phasing of this project early on in the project so that we can have a better construction start date, and we can actually start on time and do everything we need to do, knowing that this was going to be another challenge. And a part of this challenge was this is a completely operational unit. They are not shutting down for construction. And so we were able to create a phasing plan for them to be able to have at least 13 patient rooms available at one time for them to be able to still, assist their patients in this particular postpartum unit from their LDR. So we have 4 different phases. However, within those 4 phases, we do have sub-phases. And so in total, we're looking at about 8 or 9 different phases just to be able to have good access points from the actual LDR area, and also be able to provide those minimum amount of patient rooms that we can. So this is where the ORs start to come into play, because this is the most important part of the phasing. If you can see down in your right-hand side of your screen where it says phase 4B, that corridor is our main access corridor from the LDR unit on the 4th floor. And
Jessica, it's the
Yeah, go ahead.
only
The
the
only,
only
yes.
access, not the main, the only.
Exactly, which made
Yeah.
it even more of an important conversation. And so that is the only access point that we have to those ORs that you see in the top right-hand corner for our delivery room, C-section rooms, and recovery. And so even though we're not renovating the ORs, we are renovating that sterile core in front of the ORs. And so we had to, at all times, at least have one OR available for those patients, especially in the case of emergency. Apologize, too, in the case of emergency. So you can see in those sub phases, we were able to sub phase out the construction of that sterile core so that we still had access at all times. So there's a lot of coordination behind this, and there was a lot of conversations, important conversations to be had. And this is where we had really close conversations with Heather and her team. What was important? What do we need to put on our priority when trying to make sure we phase this construction out as efficiently as possible? And I am happy to say that we're already started construction. We are in phase 1. So we are moving full speed ahead, and it's a very exciting time there on the 4th floor already. So we'll move on to our next slide, where we are showing a little bit of a closer look. We wanted to be able to show you a closer look of these patient rooms and what we're doing and how we got to the larger, more state-of-the-art patient room that we're providing on the 4th floor. So as you can see, very tight existing patient rooms with a wall that kind of separates, and they're mirrored from each other. So with this, we were able to remove that wall so that you can get a lot more space, utilize the restrooms on one side so we can keep a lot of those facilities, drains, plumbing, as intact as possible, because our last thing we want to do is interrupt a lot of things going on in the upper floors and on the floors below. Also, you'll see on the north part of that plan, there's a large window, and that wall separated the window between the 2 rooms. So with us removing that wall, we now have a bigger window for the patient experience. It's going to be a lot bigger space, and we're able to kind of, more efficiently do that design within the 2 mirrored rooms. On our next slide, we'll be able to show you exactly how that room is laid out in our plans today. So you'll see that that middle wall has been removed. We expanded that restroom, try to keep a lot of those facilities in the exact same spot that they were, expanded that restroom, and we can see that we started to really plan out this room in zones. So we have in yellow, we have our clinical zone, purple represents our patient zone, and then the pink represents our family visitor zone. And so when we started to lay out all the design and equipment and everything going on in this space, we did it by those functions and those priorities. And so our first priority was minimizing the amount of foot traffic for the clinician team as they come into the patient room. So as they come in, everything is in that yellow bar. They come in, they turn to the right, they wash, gloves, they have their foam pump right there, and they turn, they can immediately access baby that's in the bassinets and the patient. All of our med gases, our sharps, patient monitor, all on that side of the patient room. And this really just helped with that flow when they go from room to room, and kind of cut down on that nurse footprint.
Can I jump in for just 2 seconds?
Sure.
So I also want to say that this was landed on after probably about 5 or 6 different iterations of design studies of how you could combine the room, whether it was using the other back-to-back relationship between those small rooms, whether it was using a room and a half, whether it was using 2.5 rooms. So this was kind of after kind of taking into account all of the existing infrastructure, which those little diagonal walls carry infrastructure up the building. and how do you utilize all of that? So this wasn't just kind of like, oh, we're here. We had to kind of go through a really good creative process to land at this state.
Yes, and a lot of that we actually did in our feasibility effort, and we were able to map that out before we got to a point where we felt comfortable to move forward with it for a full project. And just like Stephen was mentioning, a lot of those facilities and plumbing and everything like that are actually in that wing wall that you see there in the restroom, and trying to keep everything existing into that area. What you'll also see in that patient toilet is a symbol that kind of looks like a bug on the plan, but it's actually what is a Serra-Settee, and it's a special chair that the clinician team uses to have move the patient from the patient bed to the restroom. And this was another big conversation that we were having, because currently in those small patient rooms, when the nursing team had to come in and be able to access that Serra-Settee and get the patient moved from the patient bed to the restroom, it was tight. They had a lot of obstacles in their way. There was a lot going on. And so we want to be able to provide a direct access point into the patient toilet, right in front of the toilet, so that that clinician, that clinical team can come in and have, basically a full range of space with the patient to be able to get them in there safely. So you'll see that has a direct connection. And we also provided a barn door there instead of a swing door, again, to eliminate a lot of those obstacles and obstructions that they would have to face when trying to get that piece of equipment in, something that they use on a daily basis. So on our next slide, we're going to be able to show you exactly how small this patient room is. And this is a very humorous photo, and I love this photo because it really paints a great picture of how tight that width is on these small patient rooms. Not only does it paint a good picture on the finishes and how that needs to be updated, but just the size alone. And so this is one of our clinicians from our nursing team who's really just showing how tight that width is. And so imagine, we were just talking about that Serra-Settee. So imagine that Serra-Settee trying to come into this room, get past the sleeper sofa, which definitely will have dad sitting there, get past the bassinets with baby inside, and try to get to access the restroom with mom. It's just a very cramped space. And we want to be able to provide a more state-of-the-art spacious space for both the family and mom. And this also helps the clinician experience. So, we're constantly talking about patient experience, but in this project, we really elevated the clinical experience as well. Being able to provide everything they need at the front of the room, giving them the ample space that they need to be able to access mom and the baby. In our next few slides, we're going to be able to show you a lot of our renderings that we put together for in particular, the large patient rooms. And so you start to see how spacious this starts to open up. And we have our nice big window at the back. We're able to pick down that wall. We have our med gases at the head wall, bringing in a lot of color, but keeping our base finishes very neutral. A lot of our finishes here, we kept flooring, things like that. We kept as neutral as possible so that they can stay with the time, and allowing those accent colors and a lot of those patterns to come out in the accent paints as well as the upholsteries in the space. So we're going to just kind of take you through some of the renderings here. This is our rendering of the foot wall. You can see we kept everything nice and consolidated right there at the foot wall where the sink is for the clinician team. There's that barn door going to the restroom. Again, nice clear shot for that Serra-Settee, and we have plenty of space for family. This is our view of the nurse station, which was also completely revamped for the renovation, as well as a lot of the design going inside the patient rooms. We want to be able to highlight all the different rooms, so it was very easy for family members to come in and be able to find their rooms with use of graphics and signage and know exactly where they're going. I know that was a big conversation that we had before. We had family members coming on to the unit, not knowing where they're going. We wanted to make sure the nurse station was designed so that they were very approachable. They can come and ask questions. And it was also very utilized for that nursing team and be able to kind of clean up and provide more organized equipment within the nurse station, so it provides a higher function. So this is a rendering of some of the existing smaller patient rooms. So there's going to be about 9 of the existing patient rooms that are smaller will remain small. And so what we want to do is we wanted to bring all of our design that we putting into the large patient rooms and bring them into the small ones, so that that level of design also gets elevated, even though it's in a different size patient room. So this is a view of our smaller patient room, trying to clean up, again, it's the same concept, keep everything for the clinicians on the on the entrance up to the patient room side of the door. We have everything for the patient on that left side, and then family on the right. This is our view of the footwall from our rendering for the small patient rooms. You can see everything consolidated. We have our nice sleeper sofa there for dad, and then we also have our bassinet. Now, for those that haven't heard of the bassinet, it's a really great newer product for mother-baby units, where the baby can actually be in the bassinet, and then it can actually be moved over mom, so that they have a closer connection, and so mom doesn't have to reach over into a bassinet next to her. She's now over her lap, almost like a bedside table. So it's called the bassinet. So I know you guys heard me talking a lot, and I know you did not come to hear me talk. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan, who will start our panel discussion, and you'll hear more from Stephen and Heather. Thank you.
Great. Jessica, thank you so much. That was a wonderful overview. And yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into it. And really, Heather, I'm going to start with you and really, for the discussion, why this project and why now? And what really originated the original need for the MIU?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. And thank you, Jessica, for that wonderful overview. I'm so excited about this project. So as Jessica was saying, our building is 50 years old and our mother-baby unit is 40 years old. So when you do have a dated environment that really does not match the level of care that we are able to provide, we will not be able to remain competitive in the market unless we really bring everything up to code and to be delivering on that exceptional experience. As many of you guys know, women have lots of options of where they want to deliver at. And so, the other piece of it as well is that our clinicians, we are invested in our nursing teams, all of our providers, and our physicians are #1 customers. So where they're delivering at brings all of our patients here. So that when Jessica, when you were talking about bringing the clinician experience to this is why it was so important, especially through the pandemic. One of the things that we were challenged with was nursing retention, making sure that we are retaining our nurses and that they are able to work in an environment that they're proud of and that they're invested into the design aspect. So really, when all of this comes to fruition, that they're able to remain on our unit and just are really proud of what they've helped to design. And in another piece of this as well is that investing into our nurses is so important. And I'm proud to say too that our Altamonte campus is actually the only campus that we have never had to go to travelers or agency throughout the entire pandemic. So as you can see, it's essential to be bringing in the clinical expertise to really have be engaged in this process to make something that they're proud of.
Nice, thank you. Stephen?
So yeah, I think that the importance of this project really is thinking from we have a legacy building. Like Jessica said, the building, our original building is from 1972. If you can imagine, any of you who are familiar with Altamonte, I think it was opened right around the same time as the mall, when there were a bunch of pastures around here. And if you think back that far, I can't remember that far back because I wasn't born yet. It was, the codes were very different back then. So it's really critical, apart from being competitive in the market, but also to bring the state-of-the-art care that codes require now to the patients of the Seminole County market. and beyond that. So that 700 tower, we call it the 700 tower. It's our oldest tower. It really is. It's of its time, and at the time it was extraordinarily. It was a great amenity for the city, for this region. But we need to kind of bring it up to the times. The unit's been renovated once before, I believe in the 1990s, and that was mostly a fit and finish, floor, ceiling, walls kind of renovation. Not much in terms of reconfiguration. And this is really one of the first times that we're taking this and rethinking wholesale. How do we make the space code compliant as much as we can, and also make it competitive in the market as well. I saw a question in the question and answer, and I know this. I know we're trying to look at those later, but it makes sense to talk about it now. Rodney, you asked if the showers and the bathrooms are ADA compliant. We are adding ADA compliant rooms. They are not in the new big rooms. We actually had on this floor some already larger rooms, which had been previously used as the LDR rooms before we renovated that area about 10 years ago and moved the LDR to a different area of the hospital. And well, to that point, I'll get back to the ADA question, but to that point, it was interesting about this project and really complicated about this project. We actually have, I think, a total of 8 different room configurations on one unit over 21 rooms.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's because we have rooms of different sizes, and so basically the design team designed 8 different patient rooms for one use. And that was fun as we kind of delved into the project and was like, oh, that's new scope. Oh, that's new scope. But I think, yeah, and really the challenge for us as a design team was to make a holistically consistent experience across all the different room types, so that if you got a medium-sized room, you wouldn't feel like you were given short shrift versus a larger room, and very much so in the same with the smaller rooms. I'm not sure I answered your question, Jonathan, but
no, no, you did, and that was wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you to both of you. So hearing all that, and there was obviously a lot of challenges with it, but Heather, walk us through the process a little bit of what it took to actually get this approved, because I mean, what y'all just laid out was a lot.
Yeah, it is a very big undertaking. So as everyone can imagine, the Central Florida region is growing by leaps and bounds. And the Altamonte campus, it's a 400-bed facility, and it's the largest in the Seminole County. And so for our campus, it was imperative to be able to invest into 4 different service lines. And one of those service lines was our women's services line. As you can imagine, our women are primary caregivers when they have a good experience, because typically the first time that they're ever hospitalized is for the birth of a child, but they become the ones that are making healthcare decisions of where their children will go for care, where their parents, where their spouse would go for care. So it's important that we get it right. And so I'm just excited that we know how important it is to be investing into women's services. It helps to not only grow volume, but it's the right thing to do. So it really does tie into development of a comprehensive women's strategic care here.
Nice, thank you. Stephen, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about being part of the AdventHealth community is we all live in this community, and we're all given care at this facility and our facilities, and we want the best for our families too. And so I think what's interesting about what kind of the impetus of getting this project done, I think really came from an experience of one of our team members had, and they said, we had a phenomenal experience with the clinical team, the nursing team, the doctors. Everything was amazing. We wouldn't have chosen a different team, but we just wish the physical environment matched that. And so that kind of became our kind of rallying cry, and also kind of we all rallied around that and said, okay, how do we make sure that us being members of the Seminole County community have this, we want to have state-of-the-art, facilities, and how do we kind of get this this unit to the place that matches the care that's happening in there. It looks and feels that way. There is nothing unsafe or really wrong from a clinical standpoint with the space that we have. It's just that it's dated. It's not small. It meets the codes that are required, but it's also, maybe not doesn't have the spit shine that one might want to have. And so I think that was a really good kind of place to rally around as we kind of started the project. And it also, helped push that through the, approvals and everything else to kind of make sure that this was approved as we got through. Also, one of the things that I want to, this might not be the question, but one of the things I want to talk about from an approval standpoint, from a clinical standpoint, that was so critical that we haven't mentioned yet is a mock-up. We did a full-scale mock-up. We did mock-ups of both the small rooms and the larger rooms. And getting this approved, not just from a funding standpoint, but also from a clinical standpoint, involved having lots of clinicians walk through, and it wasn't a finished mock-up. We used like foam board and things like that, but it was a full-scale mock-up with all the equipment, everything in the room to make sure everything was in the right place. Because it doesn't really matter if you're doing it on drawings. Sometimes you have to see it in the place that it is. So the head wall became really critical. We spent a lot of time on the head wall, a lot of time on the bathroom. With that Sarah study, we had a Sarah study in there, pushing it around. Like I said, we have 8 different room types. We did not mock up all 8 different room types, but what we did try to do is use the mock-up that we had to make sure that we are consistent with pieces and parts and components to make sure that each of those rooms would function consistently from one to the next.
Nice.
Yeah, and if I can interject for a second, just to tag off of that, Stephen, this kind of goes back to Heather, what you were talking about when it comes to the clinical team engagement. This was a big opportunity for us to get the entire team engaged during those mock-ups. And it was through those exercises that we were able to gather that information, hear their voices. It was interactive, it was fun, and everyone was able to kind of come in and be able to voice what would work best for them instead of us designing on the outside for them. And I know that your team really appreciated that, and we as a design team really appreciate that. We were able to get information out of that mock-up that we wouldn't get in a standard project. So it was a really great exercise. And we also did something similar with the furniture. We had a furniture fair where we had, all the different options and samples would come in, and the entire clinical team, including EVS, came in and reviewed those pieces of furniture and provided feedback, not only on the use of them, making sure they were very intuitive for the family, they were safe for dad and the kids, but also EVS was able to come in and say, yes, the maintenance of this particular piece is going to be something that we can definitely maintain and be able to use over a course of so many years. So there was even deep conversations through the furniture. And in the end, we took that furniture and put it in the mock-up. So now we have the furniture they selected built in the built environment of this mock-up, and we really was able to see that room come together. And it's just another reason why having a construction team on your design team during the design process is so important, because we were able to have Brassfield come in and help us build that and coordinate the drawings with them to be able to have that experience. So it was a very important very important process of the entire design schedule.
I actually have photographic evidence of Heather testing out the sleepability of one of the couches.
Said to try everything out, so we did.
Yes.
We have some fun pictures from that.
Yes. So
Great team, but to have a mock-up that is close to the existing unit, to where we were able to send over our nurses, our providers, and they were able to, say which angle they want they wanted the lighting fixtures to be at, what worked for them to really be able to walk through the space, because they're the ones that are living and breathing this every single day. So to invest in the team like that, I really do think was a huge part of the success of this project.
Wonderful answer. I loved every bit of it. I want to shift over to a slightly different aspect of it a little bit now, and it's more of an internal question for Heather. So what are you going to do internally to provide quality patient experience during the construction of this magnitude? I mean, with, what did we say, 9 phases? How are you going to maintain that same
4
quality?
phases, sub-phases.
Yes.
Yeah, so during the construction, and I do believe this is why we have so many phases, but keeping our patients safe is absolutely paramount. And so, Jessica, when you were talking about the phasing, even of the operating rooms, because what happens in obstetrics, you can have an emergency that walks through the door at any moment, and we need to perform a cesarean section within minutes to have that baby out. It can mean a life or death situation. So when we're saying that it's imperative to always have, an open operating room, this is for the safety of our patients. So when we looked at the phasing, we really did have to work with this entire team to figure out how we can operationalize this, not only for the operating rooms, but when we go down to 13 rooms in one of the phases, then how can we shift patients? How can we maintain safety and really make it seamless for that patient? So the patient is not going to realize that they're in the middle of a construction project. So really looking at minimizing noises and everything, but just making sure that their care is seamless throughout the entire time, and that we're doing everything to maintain the safety, not only of our patients, but also of all of our clinicians that continue to work through this time.
Just out of curiosity, expanding on that a little bit, do you feel like the doctors and nurses, are they actively engaged in this process, and everybody understands exactly where it's going?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just starting the conversations early on, having everyone invested into the design. And we've had so many nurses and providers that have been working with us for many, many years. And so they're just so excited to be able to see this come to fruition. But starting with the mock-ups of, we're encouraging all of our teams to sit in the couch, or even try to take a little modified nap there, but really just be able to get their input, so that way when we are phasing through the construction, that they know what the end goal is, and that they know the why behind going through the construction. So just having the team not only invested, but giving clear communication of the different phases and how it will affect their daily work has been just instrumental to this. We're also able to present to all of our providers. We were able to show them renderings of the room. So everyone's just excited for the work to be done. So we're excited. And even right now, we have a birth experience team that they bring patients in for their birthing tours before they deliver with us. So we'll be excited when everything is done and we have our first patients in these big, beautiful rooms. So really sharing the why behind it, working with this team, and eliciting all of their team feedback has made a huge difference.
I think also, and just to reiterate to what Heather said, safety has been the #1 priority for babies, moms, nurses, all staff. And so we really had, and again, to reiterate Jessica's a couple points from earlier, having a CM on board very early has been super helpful. Mostly with the phasing has been a massive help, because we've been talking about phasing from the very beginning of feasibility, because we knew we had to maintain function, safe function for this unit for the entirety of the the construction period. And it really is a complicated kind of Rubik's Cube, because we do have that one pinch point. We have one access point for the entirety of the tower. There is, we obviously have all of the infant protection. We have all the security that happens on the unit. So as we're going from phase to phase to phase, we are, through lots of coordination, had to make sure that we're, adjusting our security, adjusting our hug system, adjusting our cameras to ensure that we are maintaining the security that we need to have for our moms and our babies as we go through this, but also from a healthcare standpoint, making sure we have the ORs open and things like that. So, and to reiterate what Heather said, communication has absolutely been key. Telling our moms as they're coming in and their families, like, there might be a little bit of construction noise here and there, and also trying to put people in rooms as far from the construction as we can. But construction is construction, and there are going to be disruptions. So but we're doing everything that we can possibly to minimize those disruptions, but also to maintain safety as well.
Our entire goal was to make this as smooth of a process as we could, from design schedule to design process to construction, and especially for the patients and the babies. So that has been a huge conversation in all those different aspects. And going back to Stephen, what you were saying about that one access point, which was, again, is a very important thing that we talked about, that corridor still has to be renovated. And so when we renovate that corridor, we're having to renovate one side of the corridor so we still have access, enough width for a patient bed to be able to go through in the case of emergency and be able to get to those ORs within seconds, and then be able to flip the renovation and renovate the other side. So it's Braswell Nagori has been instrumental being with us from the beginning on this effort. So,
and also, we looked at probably like 6 different alternatives. We looked at actually closing the OB ORs and using our general ORs, but we did some time studies. How long would it take to get a bed from the LDRs down to our regular ORs, which is 2 floors down? I think it's 2 elevator rides. And we determined that it wasn't safe. It wasn't best practice to do that. So we said, okay, let's just go back to a phasing solution and figure out how to keep these ORs, have 2 ORs open at all times to make sure that we have the factor of safety as required for our patients.
Let me go back in terms of keeping some of those things open and back up a little bit onto the building again for one brief second, Stephen. And some of the infrastructure challenges that we have overall are pretty significant based on where we are in the building and again the age. Maintaining the operations of those things. Can you talk a little bit about some of those infrastructure challenges that you're seeing?
Yeah. So our engineering team has this deep knowledge of this. TLC, Chris Maurer, has been working in this building for many years and understands this building super well, and that the continuity of our team in this building, both with RS&H and TLC, has been instrumental in kind of helping to make this a smooth project, because they know the building really well. But Chris, with his deep knowledge of the building, he knows that this is a 1972 building that has 1972 design, both not just from a space standpoint, but also from an MEP standpoint. And so many of these rooms, I think if not all of them, have individual kind of HVAC systems that have served them in the past. And those are sort of not particularly effective anymore. As you might have noticed in the pictures of our existing rooms, we actually have ceiling fans in those rooms, which is because new mothers are often warm. I'm not a clinician, but I've been told it's because of the hormone fluctuations that are happening. And that is not something we endorse. And so we're removing all ceiling fans from the project as part of this project. But the reason they were there is because those rooms had major issues with the temperature. And so we are we have a low floor to floor height. We have 10 feet floor to floor. And we had to find creative and interesting ways to bring in new ductwork to new air handlers. We're 3 floors down from the roof, so we had to find spaces above the on the units above to create new shafts. And then we had to find creative ways to integrate that new ducting into the design, so it doesn't look like we're shoving ductwork into the room. So through soffits, through other pieces and parts. And so it's not just about the beautiful design that we have. It's the comfort is paramount as well, and also meeting current codes, which is also absolutely necessary. So that's just one example. There's a couple more that we could talk through, but it's anytime you're working in a 50-year-old building in a healthcare occupancy, you're going to run into some struggles about fitting in new things, and that's just been a really concerted effort by the design team to coordinate that really well and make sure that it's done seamlessly, and it's been done very well.
And just if I can interject for a second, just to spawn off seeing what you're saying about just current codes. During this design process, we knew what the challenges were in front of us. So bringing in ACA as soon as possible was at the top of our minds. So a lot of projects, they'll go into, ACA stage 2. We immediately did ACA stage 1 in schematics. We wanted to make sure their eyes were on it. We wanted to make sure that all of our plans and everything that we were figuring out during feasibility would be something that would be in line with what they need to see in these plans, be able to have an approval.
Phasing in particular.
Yes, exactly. And so we had very deep conversations with ACA from the beginning to ensure that when we got to the end, again, a smooth process. And we're very happy to say that we got ACA approval on the first try. And I wholeheartedly believe that we got that because of bringing them in early and keeping them in front of the project the entire time, just like construction.
Yeah, collaboration and transparency is always the best policy. Great. I'm going to switch back to Heather for a second, and I've got the next couple are actually for you, and really want you to kind of weigh in on it if possible. The first one I think is actually you've hit on quite a bit, in really through the course of this project. How do you think this is going to impact your overall HCAP scores and how what your metrics?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously safety is our number one priority. And so a few things that we have going on here. So one, I will say, in the development of the rooms, to have that clinical space there first before entering the rooms, that really does tie into a reduction of hospital-acquired infections. So that's a huge safety concern for us. So having that availability is just wonderful. The other piece of this too is that we provide exceptional care for our patients, even with a dated facility. But when you are able to invest in your team, invest in your nursing team, your providers, when they are fully engaged and we are able to retain our nurses, then they're going to be able to deliver that exceptional care. So, as I was saying, I'm not the one at the bedside doing that bedside care. So if we can invest in our team, making sure that they have the they're working in the environment that they're proud of, that they have all of the tools and the resources, and they're able to provide that exceptional experience to the patient. And then, from there, our HCAP scores will continue to improve. So it really is a win-win, where it's not just our patient experience scores, but also all of our quality metrics, from nursing turnover. We look at, again, hospital-acquired infections, and back to the discussion as well, when it comes to that serosteti that our nurses use to bring patients into the bathroom. When you are don't have the ability to fit a wheelchair in a bathroom, our nurses are throwing their backs out. They can trip over things. So we're really looking at the safety of our nursing teams too, because we do want everyone to continue to work. So it's really twofold, but all of this ties in so nicely together.
Nice, thank you. All right, so continuing off that then, what are some of the things that you are seeing and experiencing in your day-to-day as far as trends and things that are impacting you and some of your team's decisions about how some of this went? And can you expand on some of that in terms of where's the industry for this service market going right now?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So one of the things that we are incredibly proud of is for this campus, we've actually just implemented what we call a low intervention birthing suite. So we're trying to take that home-like environment to for the patient and be able to bring that into the safety of a OB campus. Right now, patients do have options to be delivering at birthing centers, but unfortunately, they don't have an operating room right there, or a neonatal intensive care unit if anything goes wrong. So we were able to deliver on that experience. And then tying into that, we really try to be on the cutting edge of leading, healthcare innovations. So next month, we're actually going to be launching the use of nitrous oxide with our OB patients. So I'm sure many of you guys know that that's laughing gas that some people will utilize at the dentist. So it's actually been proven to be able to provide alternative non-narcotic pain management to our women in labor. So to be able to provide that low intervention, non-narcotic options for our patients is really something that is trendy, and that's where we should be looking to go. And then lastly is really looking at non-biased care, making sure that we are providing equal care, respectful care to all of our patients. And how this ties into the design is that historically there are some campuses that you may have to pay an out-of-pocket premium to have a larger room, or these services. So we should not, it's not fair or consistent to only provide larger, nicer rooms for those that can pay for it. So just really looking at some of those social determinants of health, making sure that we continue to keep our moms safe and healthy, and that we have equal and respectful care.
I think the low intervention rooms are a very interesting trend that's actually coming forward. And it's really being able to provide a safe place within the hospital setting for moms who want to have an alternate, delivery of care for their baby, more that at-home birth. And being able to provide that in the hospital so they have a higher level of safety. If anything happens or goes wrong, they're already within the hospital. They can immediately be, transferred to another room, and they can have that assistance and that nursing care that they need immediately if they get into a situation where things don't really go as planned. And so that is a huge safety conversation right now around home births, and the fact that the hospitals, especially AdventHealth, providing those opportunities within the hospital setting is going to be something I think is going to take off very quickly within our communities.
All right, nice. And thank you, everyone. We've come up on 1:55, so I think we've kind of blown through this pretty quickly, and don't have nearly as much time for the Q&A. But one of the questions that did come through, and this is for Heather and Stephen, is really, we've talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but the intentional decision to consolidate, go from 10 rooms down to 5. And being able to justify that in the grand scheme of how the campus operates and everything. Can y'all expand on that a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to start. So with our campus, with the mother baby unit, our average daily census is 18. So that's 9 moms and 9 babies. So currently with 26 rooms, they're not fully utilized. So it makes so much more sense to be able to have larger rooms for the vast majority of our patients. In addition, with mother baby, our patients tend to stay anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. So there is that rapid turnover. So even though I say that we have that average daily census, we're actually the patients are being admitted and discharged quite rapidly. So to be able to fully utilize what we have and be able to just have so many more of our patients have that bigger room and just more of an exceptional experience. And again, back to what I was saying originally, when even though we're reducing beds, if we get it right for OB, then they're going to continue seeking care through AdventHealth. So it really does drive all of those business decisions down the road.
Nice, thank you. Stephen, you want to add anything to that? Or I've actually got one for you directly that just came in as well.
Yeah, just real quick on that. I mean, I don't have much to add on that. I think, but we did a lot of kind of driving down into the data about how many times we reached 14 patients, how many times we reached 18 patients, how many times we reached 21 patients to determine what is kind of the magic number of kind of how many rooms we really need to have and should have during surges. And we also factored in new competitors in the market into that number as well. And so there was a lot of conversation with women's services at a system level, but also at a campus level to determine that 21 was the right number of rooms at the end of the day.
Nice, thank you. I hope hopefully that answered the question. All right, in 2 minutes or less, Stephen.
That's tough for me.
How did this team come together, and what's some of the lessons learned for you?
This team came together pretty organically, actually. I think one of the things that we do really well at AdventHealth, and I think is a really great benefit as part of our construction, is that we really try to maintain consistency of our design and construction teams by campus. So that does a couple things for us. One is that it allows kind of chemistry among people working together, kind of to understand how teams, so every project isn't a brand new team that you're kind of thrown together trying to figure out how to work together. But also, I think more importantly, it creates continuity from a historical standpoint about the campus. And this is our second largest campus. And it's a large, complex, building with lots of additions. And so having a team that included TLC, RS&H, MIU, Ramsky, folks that knew the building, knew how all the pieces and parts were coming together, was really, really critical. And Brassfield, excuse me, I've heard of Brassfield and Gorey. Brassfield and Gorey, of course, too, it's been on the campus for many years as well, has been really critical in kind of creating that foundation of knowledge that allowed this to be more smooth than if we had kind of maybe had all new players at the beginning. So I think that level of knowledge was super critical. And I also think that it helped us kind of get a fast start as well. So we were able to kind of create a team and jump off as soon as our executive leaders told us to jump. And so that was 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It's 2 o'clock, but I wanted to say thank you to everybody for a really enjoyable conversation. And I certainly hope everybody took away something from it. And with that, I think we're done, unless Dana, our Zoom host, has anything else she needs to say, or if not, then I think that's it.
Thanks, Jonathan. Actually, I think we are all set. As a reminder, a recording of the webinar and a special white paper will be shared with all of our attendees. So please look for that as soon as tomorrow. And I would just like to say thank you to our special guests and to you, Jonathan and Jessica, for hosting this webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.